Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow are awaiting trial on first-degree murder and conspiracy charges. As we get closer to their trial date in January of 2023, several small battles have been waging in court in an attempt to undermine the defense, clarify the grand jury charges, and how to handle the DNA evidence. Hey everybody, welcome to the True Crime Squad. I'm Kristi Brower, here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey Katie.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I've had a whole evening to myself, and
What?
me and the dogs have just done whatever the hell we wanted.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah,
You get the whole family out there umping softball, and then you get a break.
I know. They probably wanted me to come and watch, but
Eh,
it's very outsidey out there. I'm
yes,
okay
it
to
is.
stay in.
It's very hot out there too.
It is. I'm good. I'm still giggling because we're going to be recording a Patreon right after this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all funny, but some of it's really funny. And it is called The Happiest Place on Earth? Not So Fast.
I cannot wait to hear this.
I can't wait to present this, to be honest. So anyway, we'll have to get through this Daybell nonsense first, but
Right?
and how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, just living life, and I don't know. I wanted to do this episode today because I feel like there have been a lot of bits and pieces of things that have happened in the Daybell Vallow case, but it hasn't been enough to like fully cover an episode. And we've kind of got enough now, and there's just all kinds of legal posturing going on. So we thought it would be fun to do an update episode and kind of give y'all the details about where we're at now, because it feels slow and like this is never gonna go, but it really is. I mean, things are churning their way through court, and we're on our way to pretrial conferences that could be pleas or full on trial. So I think it'll be kind of interesting to talk about what has happened in the last few months and kind of what it all means, because something really important came out in the news today, and we'll get to that. Yeah. So this is our Wednesday episode. This is a special report, so we are not doing segments today because we just want to give a little bit of a recap just through part of this year. We're not going to recap the whole case because
Who has all night? Yeah,
no one, and we've done it all before. But to kind of talk about all the legal stuff that's been happening in the last few months since Lori was released from prison. No, not released from prison. Sorry, state hospital.
Be careful, you will cause hysteria.
Right?
Like that glitch in the system a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and we can talk about that. So we are, of course, talking about the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow murder case, particularly about the murders of Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, and the murders of JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, who were Lori Vallow's children. So Lori and Chad are, of course, sitting in jail here in little old Idaho. Chad is in Fremont County, Idaho, and Lori is in Madison County, Idaho, in these little jails, awaiting trial on somewhere around 9 charges. But we're going to talk about that because there are some concerns around some of those charges. But we're moving along toward their trials, and it can get weird and boring and hard to understand when all of this legal jockeying is happening, and there's been a lot. So
and plenty of it behind closed doors.
Almost
that leaves
all
us
of it
really just kind of speculating about what this could have meant or what they're actually doing.
Right.
Yeah, so much.
Right. So Lori was released from the state hospital in April and went back to the Madison County Jail. So she has been found competent to stand trial where she wasn't before. So she has relieved, no, received some, treatment, whatever they
Mhm.
did to spiff her up a bit, as you say,
Mhm.
to get her ready to actually be able to understand her charges and participate in her defense.
Mhm.
So she was arraigned on April 19th. So she finally did, in fact, face her charges, which up
Yeah.
to that point, she'd not actually been charged.
Mm-mm. We also had not seen her in court in over a year.
Yes, yes. And certainly the glamour, if there ever was any, is gone. She looks much more like someone who's been in jail a while.
Mhm.
Um, so then a bunch of stuff started happening because a whole bunch of decisions had been made while she was in the hospital and could not participate, and neither could her attorney.
Mhm.
So then a bunch of stuff had to happen. One was that the judge did make the decision to move the trial to Ada County, which is about 5 hours from where they're sitting right now, in the Boise area.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a big deal because we didn't know if we were going to have to see them argue that whole thing again when she came out of the hospital
Mhm.
with her new attorney, Archibald. And that didn't happen. So it looks as though that's basically been accepted by her attorney. He
Mhm.
has not fought that.
No, I think he supported that. I'm
Yeah.
quite sure he had offered his support to that. Yeah, to that motion. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, legitimately, is it the only way they're going to have at least a somewhat unbiased jury? Yeah.
likely. Yeah.
And even there, that's going to be tough to find because this
Mhm.
case is everywhere in the news here.
Mhm.
So then a bunch of other stuff has been happening. So the prosecution did file notice to seek the death penalty in Lori's case.
Mhm.
That had already happened with Chad. And of course, they couldn't make that decision while Lori was in the state hospital. So once she was released, the prosecution did come back and say that they were, in fact, seeking the death penalty.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oh, um, in the midst of all of this, John Pryor, on behalf of Chad, had filed to dismiss the case entirely against Chad,
He'd
which,
actually filed that like 2 years ago. This is
right, but
just
it was,
finally made it in front of the judge. Yeah.
yeah, finally made it in front of the judge. And of course, the judge said, what? Definitely not.
We
So,
were all shocked. Shocked, I
yeah,
say.
stunned,
Yeah.
stunned, stunned, particularly with a grand jury indictment and, you know, all of these charges. Like, yeah, sure. So that happened about the time that they decided to move the trial to Ada.
Mhm.
Then we had in May a bit of a scare because Lori's attorneys came out in the news and said that her mental health was, let's see, extremely complex and fragile.
Mhm.
This was kind of coming out around what happened is that the trial date had already been set in January of
Yeah.
2023. Then Lori comes out of the hospital. Well, she doesn't waive her right to speedy trial. Chad did,
Mhm.
she didn't. So it meant that her trial was going to happen in October.
Mhm.
Problem being, these cases are joined, and the judge
Yeah.
did refuse to separate them.
Yeah.
So one of the arguments that the Lori's defense had is that her mental health is really fragile, and to have to wait clear
Mhm.
till January for her trial might be detrimental. She could end up back in the hospital, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And Judge Boyce said, "Eh, not my problem."
We're gonna roll the dice on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did say that their trials would happen jointly in
Mhm.
January in Ada County.
Yeah.
I the prosecution, or no, not the prosecution, the defense had said that they were bringing on a neuropsychologist to be keeping an
Mhm.
eye on Lori, which I think is very smart.
Mhm.
We've seen some really good stuff out of Archibald just as far
Mhm.
as actual defense of his client.
Mhm.
unlike
Taking care of his client. Yeah.
yes, having actual concern for her
Mhm.
rather than wanting to be front and center with his dog and pony show Mark Means. Because we all know that's what that was about. It was always everything he filed was about him.
I miss Mark Means, though. Don't you miss Mark Means?
Yes, I mean, we've had some great experiences and opportunities for comedic,
Yeah.
podcasting thanks to Mark Means and his terrible skills at being an attorney.
Mhm. Him, getting kicked off the case has been bad for the brand, to be honest, but, you
It's
know,
been rough, yes. We
as it
have
turns out,
definitely
it's not all about us, so it's fine, it's fine, but, we do miss
right?
you, Mark, we do,
We
we
don't have
do.
nearly as many episodes on this case now because the
You're not
shenanigans have
filing shit
settled
every
down
day.
quite
Yeah.
a bit. Yeah. But it is nice to see because we certainly do not want Lori to have grounds for appeal and
No.
having a, dunderhead for
Mhm.
an attorney. And that was
Yeah.
that was looking like it could happen.
Yeah, in all seriousness, this needed to happen so that she can't come back later and, profess that she, yeah, had inadequate counsel 'cause, she wouldn't have been lying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's see what else has happened here.
Also, I have to say, I would
Mhm.
imagine that Jim Archibald sleeps a whole hell of a lot better at night, not worrying about which brief Mark Means is firing off at 2 a.m. in a drunken rage.
Yes, I would imagine so because I can only imagine what Archibald must have thought of those last few briefs that were,
Mhm.
full of the air quotes
Mhm.
amongst many other things that were
Well,
so
and the
ridiculous.
accusations that the Mormon Church, Health and Welfare, and the prosecutor's office were conspiring.
Yes,
Some
conspiring for something that Lori herself did. So
on
none of it
a
made any sense. We
on a
all
case
know.
that is roiling with
Mhm.
evidence. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's no reason to have to do any shady backhanded stuff. I mean, they've got all the evidence they need,
yeah.
wouldn't you say?
I would think so. We'll get to that tonight. There's more, yeah, on
Yes.
evidence, but
So the other thing that was going on behind closed doors, these hearings were behind closed doors. We didn't get to see them at all.
mhm,
Were in relation to John Pryor um, filing to have Rob Wood and Prosecutor Smith, who is the special prosecutor brought in, removed from the case for
mhm.
various ridiculous reasons that the judge did deny those motions.
We also wanted a comprehensive list of all of the felony, I believe, or death penalty cases, or maybe just cases in general. I'm not entirely sure that Prosecutor Smith had ever prosecuted.
Yeah, like ever. And she is a consultant, and so she goes all over the country,
Hmm.
like totally irrelevant, and just
Yeah.
the constant accusing of Rob Wood. And, we've talked about this before, but I mean, the bottom line is you just remove one prosecutor and another one steps up. It's not like it changes the
Right.
game. It doesn't change the game.
No, but boy, Means and Pryor have been extremely freaked out by Rob Wood.
They
Both of them
really have. And,
really intimidated by him.
we
And
haven't
he
seen
hasn't
any of that
even
from
been,
Archibald.
no, and well, those two are in court together all the time.
Right.
It's a different working relationship, I'm sure. But the crazy thing is that, especially for this last year, Prosecutor Blake has done most of it.
Yeah.
And Prosecutor Smith has been aboard a lot. We haven't
Mhm.
seen a lot out of Rob Wood, which is
Right.
fine. He's been in the background a lot, but I think that he has done a good job of getting out of Lindsay Blake's way
Mhm.
and letting her do, what she does. And she's done a great
Right.
job. I really honor that about what he has done and, where he's at with this case.
Mhm.
But, ooh, they hate him. They hate him so much.
They do.
Yeah.
They do, and I think only because he has not bought into all of their drama and shenanigans and not put up with any of it.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
but
he also talked smack about Mark Means and got caught on tape doing it, and
he
that hurt little
did.
Marky Means' feelings, and that's part of what, started all of this.
It
But
is, and, that probably should not have happened, was
no,
that
it
a
should
reason
not have
to
happened. Yeah,
remove him from a case?
no.
No.
According to the judge, 2 times. No.
No. Yeah. So those things were happening kind of in the background. But there are two new things that have just come up in the last few days. The first is that Lori's defense has asked for some clarification from the grand jury on some of her charges. And I found this interesting because when I read through it, I went, oh, no kidding. Why has no one mentioned this before? So what's happened is that some of the charges have been combined in the same statement. And so count one indicts them for conspiracy to commit first degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception for collecting the Social Security survivor benefits that Tylee was getting. They're in the same, they're lumped together. And when they're lumped together, then they're to be penalized together. But there is nothing in Idaho code that says this is how you penalize someone for first degree murder and grand theft. Like they should be separate things. So it's just the way it was written, but it is something that does have to be addressed because how do you sentence someone for first degree murder and grand theft like together? That's not a thing.
Yeah.
So Lori's attorneys have asked that this get clarified so that, they kind of know what they're looking at. And I would imagine, for example, if there was a plea deal in the works and they wanted to drop those grand theft charges, if they would plead to murder or something, how do you do that if they're lumped together? You can't.
Or they wanted to drop the murder charges and plead to the grand theft.
Right.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
That'll never happen. But,
Judge Boyce would never go for that. However, it's just interesting because this is like actual real legal work happening on the part of Lori. First time we've ever seen it. This is the kind of thing that, actually is something that's problematic.
Well, I mean, maybe it's the first time it could.
For this particular thing, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in this last year, I mean, there's not a lot Means could have done while she was in the hospital. There's a lot he did do. But she wasn't actually officially charged with these things until she got out of the hospital, so he may not have been able to
He
address
probably
that.
wasn't, but I think there were
But
probably other things in the past that maybe could have been addressed that were actual real legal issues versus just his
utter
constant
nonsense, the
drama. Yeah.
belligerent turd circus that we've witnessed, yes.
Yes, exactly. So it's kind of nice to see like actual defense attorney work happening here. I also think it's interesting to think about that, like, what if they're trying to split some of these crimes up and plead guilty to some of them? Is that why? Really? Is that the real reason underneath the, this is a violation of Idaho law, their rights. There's lots of problems with it, but is the actual underlying reason because they want to plead guilty to parts of this? And so it's got to be very clear first. Could be. That's something that, I've thought of when I read this was, well, maybe they're trying to like get some of it dropped if they plead to some of it, because that's how plea deals work.
Yeah.
So the other thing that happened just today, you may recall that there's been an argument around some testing of DNA evidence. And that was shelved a while back while Lori was still in the hospital because it was something that needed to be addressed by the defense for both defendants.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is what they have. This is the first time I've seen this entire list. And Katie, I think you said it was you as well.
Yeah.
These are the things that they have that they need to test, but in testing them, the samples will be destroyed. So it can't be repeated. So they have to do it in some way where everybody that's got a stake in the situation can have an expert present to make sure that it's done in a way that is legal and fair for everybody.
Yeah.
But they have hairs on duct tape inside a body bag used to transport the remains of JJ.
I'm going to stop you right there for just a second.
Yes.
And just point out.
Please do.
That when the children were found, like right when the children were found. That's one of the earliest predictions that we made, is
Yeah.
that we believed that there would be DNA on the duct tape that would help to convict these guys. We've been
Yes.
saying that from literally from day one, from when the kids were found.
We
So,
have. That is
not to
absolutely true.
just toot our own horns at all, except for I kind of am, because we had said that all along. And
Yes.
then finally to have that confirmed that yes, there is hair on the duct tape and they are testing it. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not that hard to get there because if you've ever used duct tape,
Right. You
it will
lose quite a bit
definitely
of
take
hair and your
a
fingerprints
pound of
on it.
flesh. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they also have fingerprints on the adhesive side of the tape that was
Uh-huh.
associated with JJ's body. So that's fingerprints of the people putting the tape on or tearing it off the roll.
Mhm.
Small dark spots on the handles of a shovel and pickaxe removed from the garage barn, that red building
At Chad's house.
at
Yeah.
Chad's house. Now, I'm going to assume that those dark spots they're expecting them to be blood,
Tylee's blood. Yeah.
Tylee's blood. Yeah. Swabs of tape areas, and this one's interesting, swabs from fingernails from JJ's right hand. So something under his fingernails on his right hand.
Mhm.
Could be a lot of things. A lot of times that's skin, scratching
Mhm.
someone when you're trying to defend yourself or get away,
Mhm.
something like that. So they have all of this.
That absolutely turned my stomach
I know, me too. When I read that, I went, oh no,
to think
he
that
was
JJ
away.
had offensive
Yeah.
DNA or defensive DNA, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Defensive. Yeah. So we're back to this place of they need to do consumptive testing, which just means that the test can't be repeated. Once it's been done, the evidence is obliterated.
Mhm.
So prosecutors filed a brief this week that they haven't done any of the testing up to this point,
Mhm.
because they were waiting for Lori to be out and for
Mhm.
her attorney to be able to be a part of this, of course.
Mhm.
And so they've now asked the judge to allow for that testing.
Mhm.
So, what often happens is the defense attorneys will have someone observe the testing or it will
Mhm.
be recorded on video.
Uh-huh.
So, um, normally that testing would be done at the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Lab in Meridian, which is near Boise, Idaho. We only have one lab in
Mhm.
Idaho that does this stuff. However, that lab has asked Judge Boyce to have it done elsewhere. They don't want to do it, which I think is
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
So here's what the lab manager, her name is Rylene Nolan. Here's what she said about that. I affirm our manual restricts visitors from operational areas of the laboratory due to the risk of contamination and disruption of work. Due to the contamination risk, the risk of distraction that could lead to errors caused by having someone video the laboratory analysis, and the necessary shutdown of all other work in the laboratory during filming, the laboratory requests to have samples analyzed by an independent accredited DNA laboratory instead of requiring the Idaho State Police Forensic Services Lab to do it.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. But I mean, this is a small lab. And I think what she's saying is that this would be really disruptive to them. They normally don't allow
Right.
visitors or anyone to observe. They're also working other cases that would have to be paused
I
in
mean,
order
surely
to do
this
this.
isn't the first time something like this has come up.
I would think.
But also, where's the Jeffersonian when you need them?
Where is the right? Come on, Bones. Where are you?
Mhm.
I agree. That's just the thing. I mean, we're not super high tech in Idaho when it comes to these
Mhm.
things. I think an independent lab probably is the best bet where they
Mhm.
can dedicate some time just to this evidence
Mhm.
and maybe to a lab that's bigger, has more
Yep.
capabilities. I don't know exactly what
Yeah.
ours has, but the fact that we only have one for the whole state should tell you something.
Well, and
Uh,
considering that some of this DNA is consumptive, meaning that using it once will be gone forever,
yeah,
you have one shot. You cannot F this up.
Right.
Maybe we need a bigger lab, a more high-tech lab, just for everyone's peace of mind to get this done right the first time. Not
Right.
to drag on the Idaho State lab at all, just
No.
that, they are telling us we really can't do it. Okay, good. Let's find something spectacular. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the kind of lab that handles this type of
yeah,
stuff all the time. So that has been submitted to Judge Boyce. Of course, the defense attorneys are going to have their opportunity with it,
yeah,
to say what they want. And so there will be an order come down eventually, but it's time. It's time to get this kind of stuff done and ready
yeah,
because trial is coming January 9th
mhm.
and they need to have all their ducks in a row here.
Well,
So,
yeah, because this could take a while. I mean, these are
well,
things that
yeah,
have got to be done.
DNA testing is not fast.
Mhm.
The fingerprint testing and a bunch of that other stuff, that's not slow. But
No.
the DNA related stuff, that's slow.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Um, so I feel like that's interesting and it's a good move forward.
Yeah,
That like
yeah.
now we're seeing this is a question that's been around for a long time because we don't know what
Mhm.
this DNA is going to show. I mean, everyone
Right.
has some guesses about it, but we
Mhm.
don't actually know.
Yeah, yeah. And in the meantime, Lori and Chad both sit in their prospective jails and wait, where
Yeah.
they have both been now for quite some time.
Hmm.
Lori, of course, with her stint at the hospital, but still, they have both been in custody now
Right.
for a long time, a couple of years.
Yeah, they have. Well,
Yeah.
and you had heard a little bit about what's going on with
Hmm.
Lori in jail.
I did. So the next time you guys see Lori in court and she's looking like she's been all spiffed up, well, she has. Lori has made some friends. She's got some pals at
I find
jail
this terrifying.
that she is able to spend some time with, doing each other's hair, exercising, chatting. I'm going to tell you that I believe that hands down, Lori is having a much better jail experience than Chad is
Right?
because Lori's at a jail where she's not in solitary. She has some contact with other inmates. And this is a jail that is well known for their good food. They have a kitchen where everything is homemade.
Yeah.
Um, some inmates, depending on what they're there for, have an opportunity to work in the kitchen. And other inmates ask to transfer to the Madison County Jail from the area because they do get treated better and fed better here.
Yes. Well, and
So
I Madison County houses women for several other counties in the area that
yes.
don't house women.
And it's a fairly new facility, the women's facility, and
Mhm.
it's decent, and
Yeah.
so I think by and large, she's having a better experience. What we know of Chad, unless this has changed since the last time we were able to talk to somebody who'd been incarcerated while Chad was there, which we did have that once upon a time, but
Mhm.
it's been a while since we were able to talk to somebody who has,
Yeah.
is that Chad is in solitary. He's in his cell. He's only allowed out when no one else is. And
Mhm.
because he is a high priority, high profile case, and they have less capabilities at Fremont to keep him safe than
Yeah.
they do
It's a
Lori at
small
Madison.
jail.
We also know at Fremont, they mostly just feed them frozen food like Hot Pockets and TV dinners. And our
Mhm.
understanding is that Chad's mostly living on Hot Pockets. So last we knew of Chad, he was in a cell where he was really not having any meaningful contact with other people.
Right?
Last we knew, the inmates were basically told they weren't allowed to speak to him. They weren't allowed to have contact with him. I had
Mhm.
heard somewhere else that he was preaching scripture and gospel to any inmates that would listen. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'd heard that. Uh,
Mhm.
Incidentally, that's exactly what little Joshy Duggar is doing currently. So,
Ugh.
preach on, I guess. But
Whatever, dude.
So that's kind of how it rolls for Chad versus Lori. Lori actually, and she had that long stint in the hospital where she also was receiving good care. I mean,
Mhm.
she's still a prisoner and incarcerated even while she's in the hospital, but still not nearly as restrictive as what Chad is experiencing. I just think it's an interesting sideline between the two of them.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It is, definitely. And maybe that's kind of always the case in men's jails versus women's jails. I don't know.
Well, in
Around
this
here, it
one,
seems to be.
they're not always in solitary though, and Chad is because they
Right.
really don't have a lot of ways to keep him safe except for keep him by himself.
And when he was first there, he was being threatened and people
Mhm.
screaming at him and stuff, and so but, people move on. I find it interesting because
Mhm.
they did kinda keep Lori separate from the other women at first
Mhm.
too. And it's interesting to me that there are women that are willing to affiliate themselves even in jail with her.
Mhm. Mhm. I know, it is interesting.
Yeah.
I had another wondering. I was thinking about
Mm,
Lori and Chad and this whole ordeal. And
mhm.
I was thinking about all of the other missing persons, missing children's cases we've covered over the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and how frequently the parents will report these children missing
Mhm.
and then tell law enforcement some kind of a tale, something along the lines of they were playing in the backyard and they vanished, or we just woke up and she was gone. We've heard a
Mhm.
lot of these stories over the last couple of years, and
We sure
then,
have.
either the children are found deceased and the parents are charged, or the children are never found, but the parents are charged based on various evidence. Do you think, and you guys feel free to weigh in on this, I just think it's an interesting thought.
Mhm.
Do you think that had Lori not refused to speak and instead been the one who said that Tylee and JJ had vanished, do you think she'd be in this position now?
Oh, I think that's a really good question. And I think things would be different.
It's
Um,
very possible.
she behaved so suspiciously from the very beginning when people figured out these kids were missing.
Mhm.
Everything she did was sketchy and suspicious. She was terrible at throwing the police off her scent.
Right.
It
I
would have
mean,
been a lot smarter to say they just disappeared, they were outside playing and never came home or whatever,
mhm. Mhm.
rather than this, "Oh, they're safe, but I won't tell you where they are," crap. It
Right.
certainly has made her look guilty from the very beginning,
It has. Well, so has marrying Chad. I mean, the way she and Chad got married, the
right?
second Tammy died and all of that. I mean, that also made them look very suspicious.
Mhm.
Uh, they've been terrible criminals from the get-go, for sure.
Yeah.
But I just was thinking about that today in the scope of the other cases that we've covered. Some of those
Mhm.
parents have been charged, some of them haven't,
Right.
thinking about like the missing little girl in Washington and and
Mhm.
some others that there's never been charges, and lots of other missing kids that maybe their parents did do it and know exactly what happened to them, and there've not been charges. It just makes me wonder. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
glad, don't get me wrong, I'm glad, but it makes me wonder if had they handled this differently, told a different lie, done different things, if they would have never found these kids.
Yeah. Well, I think you have a valid point. And it points to the extreme arrogance and believing of their own hype that
Mhm.
Chad and Lori had fallen into.
Mhm.
To think with the very suspicious things that they had done, that they wouldn't immediately be the first
Mhm.
suspects.
It's why when I talk to people who say this was just all about sex and greed the whole time, they don't even believe this shit. This really wasn't about their beliefs. I disagree
Yeah, I do too.
because they didn't behave like that. They behaved like they were drinking their Kool-Aid. Like they
Absolutely.
really believed that there would be an earthquake that wiped out Salt Lake City. Like there
Mhm.
would be a reckoning with Jesus Christ that set them free from their crimes.
Yeah.
They did believe to some degree. And were they fire and or were they oil and gas or wow, I just can't do it right. Were they a match to a flame? Yes, they were. I
Yeah.
still got it wrong. That's fine. Whatever. I
It's
think we
fine.
know what I mean.
I
Uh,
think we get the point. Yes.
I'll stop trying. But of course they were. And a match made in hell? Most certainly.
Yeah.
But they believed this shit to the point that they didn't even try that hard to cover their own tracks.
No.
Lori really thought that all she would have to do is say, I'm not telling you, and that
Mhm.
would be enough.
Yeah.
She really thought that would work.
She really seemed to, because she stuck with it to the point of being extradited from Hawaii
Mhm.
to, account for where her children were.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I have also, been amazed the entire time since the authorities found the kids' bodies, that they were so arrogant to think they would not be caught burying
Mhm.
them in Chad's backyard.
Mhm.
Like, really?
Mhm.
That's another, I think, another point that proves your point, that they really did
Mhm.
believe this shit, because
Mhm.
they, I mean, you didn't think that would be one of the first places they would look.
Yeah.
It really nearly was the first place they looked, you know? They looked in Yellowstone Park, and then they looked in Chad's backyard.
Mhm. Yep.
So interesting.
And honestly, they could have made them disappear in Yellowstone Park.
Oh,
They could
yeah.
have. At least for longer than this. They could have.
Mhm.
They didn't. They
No.
didn't. They were so self-assured.
Mhm. They really were, which is terrifying,
Yeah.
uh, just to think about who they are, that they were so arrogant to think that they could get away with all of this.
Mhm. Well, I mean,
But I don't think it's been made it
Chandler law
probably easier.
enforcement. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
definitely, but, Chandler law enforcement taught them that, I think, in some ways.
Right?
She did get away with murder.
Yes, she did.
So, what's another one?
She got away with, conspiracy to commit murder of Charles Vallow. I mean,
Mhm.
not she's not gotten away with it now, but
No, but at the time,
at the time, yeah.
and maybe she got away with the murder of Joseph Ryan too. We think she did. A lot of
Mhm.
people believe she did.
Yeah,
There's no real proof of it now, but bodies fall around Lori. We know that.
they definitely do.
Anyway, it's just thoughts I've been having.
Yeah. I think that's a very valid point. And we'll see what's gonna happen, I'm very curious to see what happens come November when their, pretrial conferences come up. Or is this really
Mhm.
gonna go all the way to trial? I mean,
I don't know.
these
I
are
don't
death
know.
penalty cases. I mean, or are they gonna try to get, and I'm sure they already have, but are they trying to get one of them to flip on the other?
Right.
I do really wonder if that's what Archibald wants Lori to do,
Oh, I'll bet it is. I'll bet it is. We know this is part of the reason that Mark Means was so mad at Prosecutor Woods
right?
because he told Lori's sister Summer
Mhm,
that he believed that Chad was the mastermind behind this, that Lori was just following him, and that she would do herself well to turn on him, to roll on
mhm.
him, to testify. That's one of, and of course, he told her also that little Marky Means is an idiot and she needed different counsel. Those
Yeah,
were basically the things he said in
mhm.
not so many words, but I'm summing it up. But anyway,
Well, he also said,
everyone has said that in law enforcement that they really think that Chad really was the mastermind. A lot of people don't think that's true. They think
mhm,
that Lori really cooked this stuff up and that she just, that Chad was following behind her like a little puppy dog. But I think it's very interesting that that's not what Prosecutor Wood believes because
yeah.
he knows more than we do,
Well,
you know?
also, you look at all of Chad's writing and the stuff that he
Mhm.
did, calling himself a prophet of the Mormon Church and trying to
Mhm.
draw people into his little circle.
Mhm.
You're telling me that he wasn't the mastermind of this? This is just an extension of all those stories that he's written and told.
Yeah.
I think he is the mastermind. The other
Mhm.
thing, and we have to remember, is this all true that Prosecutor Wood said to Summer? Or did he have, was this part of a motive on his part? But he
Mhm.
said there's actually a lot more evidence against Lori than there is against Chad.
Yeah.
And I found that very
Mhm.
interesting. Also, is it true? Was that a manipulation on his part? We don't know.
We don't know
Uh,
because truly, if he really thinks that there's a lot more evidence against Lori and they're going to have a lot easier time convicting Lori, why wouldn't you really want Lori to turn on Chad so that you could certainly convict him too?
yes.
Because the
Yeah.
thought of Chad not getting convicted in this, well,
Terrifying.
that's pretty gross. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see that happening really.
I
But
don't
but you're
either. I
right.
don't either.
Maybe that was part of his thought process that He
Hmm.
really needs Lori to see the light because he really needs that testimony.
Right. Right. And what's going on behind closed doors with both defendants and their attorneys? Because probably both attorneys are like, you need to take a plea.
Hmm.
But are they rational enough at this point, or have, given up on their whirlwind romance to a point that they can flip on each other?
I don't know. Or is Chad sitting in that cell reading those scriptures and
Just getting
continually
crazier
dreaming
by
up,
the minute?
yeah, all of the other reasons why he definitely is a prophet of God and yada yada?
Hmm. See that.
A lot to think about.
It really is. Well, and also because Lori has shown no interest in turning on Chad. I mean,
No.
Chad, it was Chad who tried to sever their cases,
Hmm.
not Lori.
Hmm.
So, things are still,
In Pryor's words, not severing would be extremely prejudicial to his client.
yes, yes. So there's some interesting things in those words that we've heard
Hmm.
from the prosecutor and from Pryor. Make us really make you think a lot about
Hmm.
what do they know.
Yeah.
So this is where it all stands right now. We'll continue to update, and periodically we will do another update episode to kind of roll it all together. Because if you don't catch us on Wednesday night case updates, you might not hear this.
Hmm.
Um,
We literally talk about this case every week on Wednesday night case
yeah, we
updates.
talk about this case constantly, but
Hmm.
it's so much information that I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's good to put it all in an episode so that you can hear
Agree.
what's going down. So we'll keep updating. We'll see what happens with the request to clarify from the grand jury. We'll see
Hmm.
what the judge does with the request to use the DNA samples, all of it. This
Yeah.
is like, we're getting to the nitty gritty of the
Hmm.
actual, like, what's going to come out in the trial
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
that feels kind of good at this point. Like, we've
Hmm.
been waiting for so long to see what all do they know and where is this going to go.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, this is our Wednesday episode. We'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain for our Wednesday night case update live stream. And immediately following that, because this will be it's the third Wednesday of the month, we will be having the True Crime Cold Read Party,
Hmm.
which is our membership on YouTube. So it's $4.99 a month. If you join, then you get to come to the cold read party, where you can bring a cold case that you've, maybe it's stuck in your head for years and you really want to know what happened. We'll do a cold read.
Hmm.
We'll read cases. We'll give you what we think happened, and
Hmm.
it's really a lot of fun. We read a bunch of them every month, and we really enjoy it. So you are certainly invited. Just click the join button on the homepage of our YouTube channel, which is just True Crime Squad,
Hmm.
and follow, just follow the instructions to join, and then you'll see the announcements and, the invites and stuff for that
Hmm.
True Crime Cold Read Party. So we will be back for that tonight as well.
Very good.
So, as always, there's something always to talk about in true crime. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and check us out on Patreon. We are True Crime Squad on Patreon, and you're gonna want to hear this episode. Tell us again the name of our newest Patreon episode, Kitty.
The happiest place on earth? Not so fast.
Crimes at Disney. It's gonna be awesome. So if you sign up with us over on Patreon, then you get that extra content. We do 2 extra shows a month, and we do a lot of fun stuff over there. So go check it out. And you know it. We are the True Crime Squad. Thanks for being here.
Take care.